Now that we looked at the current 2020 Buffalo Bills roster, it's time to take a look at 2019 and see where there's holes left to be filled. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Believers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to part 2 of this roster breakdown edition of Believers Talk, where we break down the 2020 Buffalo Bills roster and we compare it to the 2019 Buffalo Bills roster when it was a 90-man roster to see what holes the Buffalo Bills might still be planning to fill in. Again, guys, thank you for joining me. My name is Joe. If you are new to this channel, guys, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. After you hit that subscribe button, you want to hit that notification bell. YouTube notifies you when we put out new Buffalo Bills or Buffalo sports content. While you're here, hit that like button and then go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the current makeup of the Buffalo Bills 2020 roster. And like I said, in this episode, we're going to compare the current 2020 roster to the 2019 roster. Now, if you're with me in the last episode, we went over the Buffalo Bills current 2020 roster. Currently 69 players on the Buffalo Bills 2020 roster. And as we know, that we can have up to 90 players between now and the last preseason. I think it's the Monday after the last preseason game of the NFL season. So right now we need to add some players, right? There's 21 spots still available. Now we know that we have 7 draft picks, right? So we add those on to the 69 players. And also in 2019, we added 8 undrafted free agents. So we'll add those on as well. Add those 15 players. That puts us at, what does that put us at? 84, I believe it is. So that gives us 6 spots to kind of play around with. So when you're looking at the Buffalo Bills, and you can say, where are they going to fill those needs, whether it be in the draft, whether it be further along here in free agency, or whether it be one of those undrafted free agent spots that they can definitely take as well. So we're going to compare the 2019 full 90-man roster to the current Buffalo Bills 2020-man roster, the 69-man roster, to see where holes can be filled. And we're going to start with center. We're going to go in alphabetical order by position. So that means we are going to start with center. And guys, in 2019, we actually had 3 centers. Right now in 2020, we only have 2. We have Spencer Long and we have Mitch Morse. With Mitch Morse, we have to remember the injury concerns from last offseason, right? He got that concussion early in offseason, which kind of held him out the rest of training camp and all of the preseason games, so he was ready to go week 1. That's the only reason, in my estimation, that we would add another center to this roster, is just for a body to take the reps in training camp to work and in the preseason, because I think between Mitch Morse and Spencer Long, they have a pretty good handle on what needs to be done at that center position. I have trust in them to getting the job done as 1 and 2 on the depth chart. So I feel like we don't need to add a center in the 90-man roster. However, we could add a center just for an extra body during training camp and during free agent and during the preseason games. But we also have to remember, what's the NFL season going to look like, right? Everyone knows about this COVID-19 situation. Again, guys, I hope you guys are staying safe, staying healthy. Do your best to do the social distancing and be proactive with everything, right? Again, the only way we can get ahead of this is try to be proactive and try to beat it. And I hope you guys are all safe and healthy. So we don't know what the season is actually going to look like, but we know that's a 90-man roster. So could the Buffalo Bills add another center? Absolutely. Like I said, they did have 3 in 2019, but I feel confident in the 2 that we have. Moving down to the next position, we have cornerbacks. Here's a spot where we could add some depth for the 90-man roster. We had 9 cornerbacks during the 90-man roster period for the Buffalo Bills. 9 cornerbacks. Right now we have 7, and I think the depth there is good. And I think out of the 7 that are currently on our roster, the 4 are gonna be our starting cornerbacks come the start of the season. 4 or 5 are gonna make that 55-man roster. But when you're talking about adding bodies to training camp, to preseason, this is a position where you can always use some more depth, right? We've seen it before in history. We've seen cornerbacks get injured, and then we need someone to step up. So again, cornerback, we had 9 last season for the 90-man roster, only have 7 right now. So it'll be interesting to see if we add another corner or 2. We don't need a big name corner, right? Our cornerbacks are pretty much set. Maybe draft a corner in the 4th round, day 3, something like that, just to fill that roster spot, get someone who could be on the practice squad and work his way up to the starting rotation. Defensive ends, we already have 7 defensive ends. I know a lot of you are thinking, hey, we're going to go defensive end in the draft, and I personally agree with you. But if you just look at the numbers are suggesting we don't need to. We currently have 7 defensive ends on the 2020 Buffalo Bills roster. When it was 90 men, we only had 6. So we already have an extra defensive end. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible to go get 2, like I said in the beginning of this episode. Just because we did something one way in 2019, that doesn't mean we're stuck to doing it the same way in 2020, right? We can change things up. Brandon Beane, the Buffalo Bills front office, they can change things up. They can have 9 defensive ends if they feel like they need to find the right guys for this system. So right now we have 7 defensive ends. Last year when we had the 90-man roster, we only had 6. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at the defensive end position. I've said before that Trent Murphy roster spot looks enticing to me just because of the dead cap money that we would take, the Buffalo Bills would take on compared to the cap hit they would give us. I think we'd save like $7 million or something like that if we would just release him, or maybe we're thinking about trying to trade him. Maybe a way to move up into the earlier in the 2nd round on day 2 of the draft is to trade Trent Murphy. Who knows what the Buffalo Bills are thinking? I just think there's some options out there. I don't feel comfortable paying Trent Murphy almost $9 million or a little bit more than $9 million for the type of contribution he gave this team last season. Let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with my take on that. Going to the defensive tackle position, right now we have 5 defensive tackles on the roster. Last year we had 6. When we had 90-man roster, we had 6. Remember, we had Kyle Pecco in there and Robert Thomas as well. They added to that. But you know what? With a healthy Harrison Phillips and with some good players coming back at Oliver, of course, Starla Toole, and some guys picked up in free agency, I like the 5 guys we have. So we don't need to add one. Again, if you want to add one just for the body, for training camp and for preseason, I would see why you would do that, just to add to that rotation. But I don't feel like we need to add. I feel like out of the 5 defensive tackles we have, 4 of them are going to be on the active 53-man roster when that time comes. Of course, the fullback position has not changed. Patrick DeMarco holding his own at that fullback position, recently restructured his contract to give him a better shot of making the 2020 Buffalo Bills roster. At guard, you have 6 guards in 2019 to only 4 in 2020 currently. You need to get some guard help, right? Just because, again, you want those bodies in there. I'm not saying we don't have good guards right now. I think we do. But the problem is you don't want them to get hurt. We saw how much the Buffalo Bills revamped the offensive line last year during the offseason. Well, with injuries to Le'Adrian Waddle and other injuries that we suffered on the offensive line, Mitch Morse going out with a concussion, among others, we saw that get depleted quicker than we wanted it to, right? So you want to make sure that you have enough guys at the offensive guard position to learn the scheme, learn the system. So, forbid something were to happen to one of those 4 guards that we have on the roster, you have someone able to step in at least to start the season if he has to, and who knows the position, who knows what we need, what the Buffalo Bills want out of him, how to run the Buffalo Bills offense from that guard position. So I would say we need a little help at guard. I like the guards we have, but maybe get 1 or 2 more, whether it be the draft or in free agency or undrafted free agent, whatever you choose. Just make sure you get a little more guard help. We had 2 kickers in 2019. We have 2 kickers in 2020. So we know that position is pretty much set. Again, more than likely, I think that's Stephen Hauschka's job, but it's always good to have competition. Always good to have the extra body in there as well. So we'll see what happens in the 2020 season. But again, I think that's going to be Stephen Hauschka's for at least 1 more year. Let me know if that makes you happy or if you're upset about that. If you want to see the Buffalo Bills move on from Stephen Hauschka after he did have a slow start to last season. But again, I just look at the end of last season, including the last 4 weeks of the season and that postseason game. He was pretty much on fire during that time. So, I say give him one more year in there and see if he can't turn it around. Again, this guy's just 2 years removed from tying the record for most consecutive 50-plus yard field goals in NFL history. So we got to give him credit for that and hope that he finds what he had back then, and hopefully it helps the Buffalo Bills in 2020. Looking at the linebacker position, currently on the Buffalo Bills roster, we have 8 linebackers. Well, in 2019, our 90-man roster had 11 linebackers, guys. 11 linebackers. So you're talking about guys like Tyrell Dodson, you talk about Juwan Foggy, some names that you'll probably forget because they were on the 90-man roster and they were quickly released and taken off the 90-man roster. So, not there for the 53-man roster. But the fact that we had 11 linebackers shows that we might not be done at that linebacker position. We still might be going after depth there, get some depth signings. Maybe we'll get Tyrell Dodson back, and just because he knows the system, he knows what to look for. Julian Stanford was another good thing back then, and we'll see what the Buffalo Bills can do. Eli Harold was on the team in 2019, so those are some names that maybe will come back, right? Maybe we'll come back to Buffalo and help that roster with the depth, know what the Bills want, what the coaching staff expects from them, and then that will help the Buffalo Bills when it comes to preseason games, able to fill that rotation in. Long snapper, still the same, just like the fullback position. We had one guy. We have one guy here. That's Reed Ferguson. Just at the beginning of last offseason, he signed a 3-year contract extension, so I expect to see Reed Ferguson in a Buffalo Bills uniform in 2020. Punters, we had 2. Currently, we only have 1, so I expect to see competition go in there for Corey as he gets ready to get ready for the 2020 season. Obviously, no one was too thrilled with this 2019 season, so we'll see what the Buffalo Bills do in 2020. I would expect for us to move on from Corey Bojorquez before Borquez, however Jack Patrick wants me to say it. But I don't know. I mean, right now you're looking at free agency, you're looking at the draft and saying, hey, it's all right in front of us. We haven't done anything yet. So what are we going to do at that punter position? I will say last year we also had Corey Carter, and we had that competition at the punter position. Would love to see the Bills bring in a punter and hopefully at least challenge Corey Bojorquez to that punting position in 2020. Quarterbacks, we had 3. We have 3 now. Of course, last year we had Tyree Jackson out of the University of Buffalo. A lot of Bills fans are happy to see him stay in Buffalo where he belongs. I was happy to see him in Buffalo. Happy to see him have some success in the XFL for the DC Defenders before, of course, they had to cancel their season due to the coronavirus. So we had 3 back then. Now we have 3 now. Now, obviously, it's Webb, who's our 3rd quarterback. Barkley still our 2nd. Even though a lot of people think we should move on from Barkley, there's no reason to, because Josh Allen's going to be healthy all next season. We don't have to worry about it. Running backs, this is where we're going to spend a lot of time. In the running back position, not only were some of you talking about defensive end position, we're talking about the running back position. And guys, in 2019, when we had our 90-man roster, we had 8 running backs. 8 running backs on this roster. Talk about, remember, LaShawn McCoy was on this running back committee. Marcus Murphy, Snorris Perry was here. You had Frank Gore, Keith Ford was another guy that was here. Right now, the Buffalo Bills only have 4 guys. 4 guys. Christian Wade's one of them. Tawan Jones is another one. And then, of course, Devin Singletary and TJ Yeldon. Those are your 4 running backs for the Buffalo Bills. So it would not be a surprise for the Buffalo Bills to draft a running back. And remember, right before the draft last season, like a week before the draft, that's when they signed TJ Yeldon to his contract. So don't be surprised if the Buffalo Bills still go after running back before the draft and get a running back in the draft as well. Move that number up to 6. Not sure if it's going to get to 8, right? I'm not sure we're going to double the running back room between now and the start of preseason. But again, you don't know when that's going to be right now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that running back room. I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I'd be more surprised if the Bills did not draft a running back than if they did. And I would not be surprised if the Bills still picked one up in free agency. So we'll see what happens at the running back position, but there's still plenty of work to be done right there. Safeties in 2019, you had 5. Right now, you have 4. I could definitely see some depth added to that safety position. Tight ends, you have 6 right now. You only had 5 in 2019. Tackles, you had 6 And now you have 5. Again, I said this with the guards, I say it with the tackles. Depth at the line is always a key thing, and it could be offense or defensive line, because you get those injuries, they pile up quickly, right? And you're talking about guys that are taking on, putting a lot of hurt on their body every single play. Every single play, they're involved in some sort of collision with another guy on the other side of the line of scrimmage. So you want to get depth there, especially in the preseason, to try to keep these guys healthy. I like the tackles we have. I really do. I like Cody Ford. I like Deion Dawkins. I like some of these guys that we picked up in free agency, but we need to make sure they stay healthy. So bring some depth in at that line position. Same thing with defensive tackle and defensive end. Maybe get some depth in there so you know these guys can stay healthy going into the 2020 season. Listen, you want your best guys out there to start the season. Hopefully the Buffalo Bills can make sure that happens. Like I said, we have 6 guys at tight end now. We only had 5 in 2019, so I think the tight end room is pretty much set. And then we have 9 wide receivers right now, and you think that's a lot. We had 13 wide receivers for the Buffalo Bills in 2019. Now, I feel like we're more set at their wide receiver position, so I don't think we're going to get to 13. But again, we've talked about maybe drafting a taller receiver in the NFL draft. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Plus, remember last year, David Stills became an unrestricted, undrafted free agent. The Buffalo Bills might pick someone like that up here in the NFL draft. We all know how much I love Colin Johnson. I was thinking that David Stills would go in the 4th or 5th round. That's why I predict for Colin Johnson. Well, if he goes undrafted, bring him to Buffalo. You're talking about 6'5", someone who's definitely a red zone target, who can definitely go get the ball if you need him to. That's exactly what we need at wide receiver right now. We need that length. We need a red zone threat. We need someone who you could throw a jump pass to and can just go up and get it against most cornerbacks in this league. So those are the roster spots currently that the Buffalo Bills, I believe, will focus on. I believe we'll get another wide receiver in the NFL draft. I believe we'll get a running back in the draft and pick up a running back in free agency. So let me know which running back you want the Buffalo Bills to pick up in free agency, because the way it looks, either we're going to draft 2 running backs, one early, one late, maybe get undrafted running back as well, or we're going to pick up a free agent. So let me know, if we pick up a free agent running back, which one would you want the Buffalo Bills to pick up? Also, look at the linebacker position. Again, we have 8 right now. We had 11 in 2019. Definitely a position you can add a roster spot to, 1 or 2. I don't see us adding 4 wide receivers because, again, with the addition of Stephon Diggs, you know Diggs, Brown, and Beasley are going to be there. Now you need to figure out the other 3. Is Ray McLeod going to make an appearance this year? Isaiah McKenzie just re-signed with the Buffalo Bills. Will we get another special teams guy, or is Andre Roberts still that guy for the Buffalo Bills? Remember, Andre Roberts made the Pro Bowl last year, so is he still there for the Buffalo Bills? So I think there's some questions at wide receiver, but again, your top 3 are set, so you do not have to worry about that. We're set at the tight end position. I can always see more depth on the offense and defensive lines, just because you want to keep those guys healthy. Cornerback, we have 7 now. We had 9 in 2019, so maybe get another body there. But again, I think our roster is pretty much full, guys. I love our roster the way it is, the way it's set up. Again, for the possibility to draft best player available is just fun to think about. Again, the Buffalo Bills don't have a top 10 pick. When was the last time the Buffalo Bills did not have a top 10 pick in the NFL draft? Feeling really good about this season, really excited about this NFL season. I hope you are too. Again, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the 2020 Buffalo Bills roster. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.